Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about deck building because, I make a lot of decks, and I also see a lot of other people's decks, and, I think particularly if you want to be building your own decks, if you want to be playing with your own decks, then this could be helpful because when people who give tips about these kind of things, something that I think they often maybe don't bring up, or maybe it's concealed within kind of other points, is one facet of deck building which is really quite important, and that is the speed of the deck that you are playing. Now, this to me is particularly important in Runeterra because in Runeterra, people have tried to classify many different decks as, is this an aggro deck? Is it a mid-range deck? Is it a control deck? Is it combo deck? And all these are sort of generic terms, right? And people go, well, this one is kind of like this or that and this or that. Ooh, it's kind of a combo deck, but it's also kind of, mid-range-ish sort of thing. And I think that those terms are kind of, I don't know, it's not that they don't work for Runeterra, but sometimes it could be a bit clunky, because sometimes it just doesn't quite fit as well as you'd hope. Like, you can call something an aggro deck, but it plays like a couple Captain Pharaon, which is an 8-mana card, and so that means that you want the game to get to turn 8, so is it an aggro deck? Well, maybe. And so I think the better way of classifying decks in Legends of Runeterra is actually just thinking about what turn that the deck is aiming to win on. The speed of the deck, if you will. If we take something like Pirate Aggro, then that would be, a turn 6-5 kill, right? Where you're going all out at them, and you're killing them like turn 5, turn 6, maybe turn 7 at your latest, and then after that, if the game goes to turn 8 to 9, you've probably lost, unless, you're a top deck god. Similarly, you can have mid-range decks that normally win like turns 8 to 9, think like Shen Jarvan or maybe Ash mid-range, right? Ash Noxus, something like that. Where they're winning like turns 8, turn 9 kind of thing. Those are your mid-range decks, and then you've got control decks, which is like, normally turns 10 and later, and combo decks can kind of exist anywhere in between depending on what the combo is. And I think that that is particularly important in deck building and also helps us with the classification as well. Now, how might this help you in terms of deck building? And let's look at some specific examples, because I think there is a trend or a want of maybe less experienced players to simply just put in the cards that they know are good cards and, worry about things later. And that's not the worst strategy in the world. For some things, you run good cards, they're good cards. Great. But a good example of a card that is a very good card, but might not fit every deck, is Eye of the Dragon, which is a really good card, but if your speed of deck is much quicker than Eye of the Dragon, then essentially this card is obviously not a very good card to play. Even if you have a bunch of spells, you could play maybe a Nami deck, right? I'm sure people have tried this with like Nami and Eye of the Dragon, and it doesn't really make much sense for a start because, aside from it having spells, you're going to end up buffing an ephemeral unit, so it doesn't make that much sense anyway. But the speed of the deck is too slow. We've seen with Nami Zoe that, they often can, just start going off on turn 5 and win the game on turn 5 sometimes, with the right curve. Even turn 4 sometimes, they can just go absolutely crazy with the right hand. But Eye of the Dragon is a card that, despite being a very good card, is meant to enable you to get to the later stages in the game. So if you're playing a very fast deck, despite this being a good card, it's not a card that you would want to include in your deck, perhaps, because the speed of your deck is quicker. And I think that identifying the speed of your deck and what turn you're likely to be winning on, or what the goal sort of turn to be winning on, is a good way for you to sort of rule cards out. I'm trying to win on turn 6. Most games will go to turn 6, so I don't really need Eye of the Dragon. That's the kind of thinking. Oh, I'm trying to win on turn 9 or 10 or later than 10. Eye of the Dragon is a very good option because the game isn't guaranteed to go that long, so I will need something to help stall out the game and get me to those later turns, and Eye of the Dragon is a very good option for those kind of decks. Another good example for this would be Sun Disc decks. Now, the Sun Disc, if you're trying to win by getting the Sun Disc off and getting your level 3 champions to then win you the game, that's not going to happen almost certainly before like turn 6, and most likely is probably going to happen like turn 8, 9 maybe. You know, like turn 8, I would say, is probably your average. You can maybe get it off super quick, you know, if you have like a god hand and you curve perfectly, but it's not very likely, right? So you're thinking about those, how am I going to get to, you know, the turns 7, 8, 9 when the Sun Disk is more likely to be going off? How am I going to get to that point? And that is why, you know, a card like Xerath, it's really good for Sun Disk, right? Because Xerath is a champion that allows you to get to those later stages in the game because he will start killing the units for you. And so Xerath, that's why a key reason why Xerath is perhaps the best Ascended champion for the Sun Disk is because he fits the speed better than any of the other champions. And you could see, if you look at my champions in my Sun Disk list, they kind of follow sort of how good they are in terms of fitting the speed of the deck. Azir it wants to go much quicker than that. We've seen with Azir Aurelia that Azir wants to go much quicker than the Sun Disk does. So he doesn't really help you really get anywhere. He wants to attack with things. He wants to, you know, summon a bunch of units and go really wide, you know, really fast. That's not what the Sun Disk wants to do. And the Sun Disk also takes up a board space, so it also stops you from doing that. Renekton doesn't really fit the speed of the deck that well, but is ahead of Azir in terms of this, and, you know, with the list that I'm running in particular, you know, he has some synergies with, like, you know, the Roiling Sands and the Vulnerable and all that, so Renekton, I think, makes the second least sense, and then Nasus fits the speed a bit better, not perfectly, but a bit better, and Nasus, the only reason Nasus isn't a 3 of really is because sometimes getting the Slays can be a bit difficult to get off, and so, you know, sometimes Nasus just won't be that close to leveling up, and then, you know, you aren't that good with Nasus, and so that's why there's also one Renekton. But Nasus fits the speed as well, normally leveling up around turn 7, 8, 9, fits the speed pretty well, and Xerath obviously is helping us get to those later turns, and fits the speed of the deck really, really well. Another good comparison we could make is between Ava Achiever and Karina Mastermind in a kind of Teemo style deck, or a trap style deck. I would say if you want to go really slow with it, and, you know, you'd probably lean in heavier towards Caitlyn and all of her support, Ava might make more sense. Ava is a card that when you look at Ava, she's really a card that sort of gets going on turns like 8 and 9 and 10, and the longer the game goes, the bigger the threat Ava actually is, particularly if she's staying alive on those turns and planting the extra mushrooms each time. You know, the longer it goes, Ava gets better, and so you want a really grindy, stally deck if you're going for Ava. But if you just want to, you know, win the game on turns, you know, potentially 6, 7, 8, which, you know, I think most Teemo decks do want to do, then Karina is just your better option, and that is why I think most people have defaulted to going with Karina over Ava, even though when we initially saw the cards, you know, perhaps people were unsure which one would actually be better. But if we just look at it from a standpoint of which of these cards fits the speed of the deck that we are going to build better, then it should have been obvious to us all that Karina would be the correct option over Ava, because Ava is a very grindy, slow card, and Karina is one that can finish the game for you right there on the turns when you're normally trying to finish the game. And so whenever you are deck building, whenever you are coming up with a concept that you really love, this cool little combo, always keep in the front of your mind, not even the back of your mind, the front of your mind, what is the ideal turn that I will be winning? What is the most likely turn that this deck will be winning games? And then try and find cards that you think can fit the speed of that. Am I winning super early in the game? You know, turns 5, 6. It's normally kind of the earliest you will be winning most games. You want the aggressive cards. You know, you don't want any cards that are higher cost than probably 5, if that is what you are going for. Are you trying to win in the turns, you know, 10 plus? Well, then you just want cards that are going to get you to that point, and then obviously whatever sort of finisher you are going for. And if you're in that mid-range, you kind of want a nice balance of cards that can help get you to that mid-range point against aggro, but then also have, you know, some nice finishers for the control decks that you'll be against as well. And so always keep in the front of your mind, speed of the deck, top deck building tip for the day. And thank you very much for watching, and have a really nice day.